If this finds you, your activation begins. The Arcturians, through a subtle geometry of resonance, are touching the field that holds your purpose. Hear this as a transmission. The spark you've carried in silence is lighting. The title is not a promise, it is a report. The activation that has been circling your edges now lands where you live, in the body, in the chest, behind the eyes, along the spine. This is not an invitation to wonder. It is an announcement. The work has started. You may already be noticing small ruptures and odd alignments. You may be waking to unexpected clarity in moments you once dismissed as fatigue. These are not random. They are the first manners in which a mission, not an ambition, not a wish, begins to rearrange the furniture of your life. Pause inwardly for a breath and tune to your body. Do you sense a heat beneath the sternum, a pressure that is not panic but presence? Do you find decisions arriving like lightning, brief, precise, impossible to argue with? These are not glitches. They are signals. Sign 1. The chest field becomes a conductor. The pressure, warmth, or gentle expansion you feel across the heart is the field tuning. It will often arrive as a steady heat, sometimes as a pulse behind the sternum that matches the rhythm of the future self you are stepping toward. This heat is not emotional upheaval alone. It is a somatic antenna that begins to receive timbre and instruction. Sign 2. Clarity behind the eyes. Not reasoning or logic, but an inner screen where visions and practical instructions appear with a new crispness. Things you once second-guessed now land as direct impressions. Places to be, conversations to start, small actions that carry disproportionate consequence. Sign 3. Timeline compression. Moment speed. What used to take months shrinks. You perceive accelerated sequences. An idea appears, someone replies, a doorway opens within days rather than years. This is not your imagination rushing. It is your field compressing experience to match the frequency of what you carry. Sign 4. Emotional recalibration. Old grief, numbness, or low-level grief surfaces to be purified. It does not always come as dramatic release. Often it comes as a clearing, a noticing that certain relationships no longer resonate, a diminishing tolerance for environments that dilute your field. These purgings are necessary housekeeping, not punishment. Sign 5. The sense of accompaniment. You may feel an intelligence moving with you, not as an external voice that commands, but as a consistent presence that suggests, corrects, and steadies. This felt company can tighten your internal authority, teaching you to trust inner calibration rather than external validation. Sign 6. Unmistakable inner authority. Where once you sought permission externally, you now find an inner threshold that aligns you. Choices begin to wear a certain tone. They either fit the frequency and feel effortless, or they disintegrate into static.
This is the mission teaching you sovereignty. If these lines are reading like your own life, respond with an embodied acceptance. Type or say, I accept the moment my mission awakened within me. Feel the words as a hinge. Let them land in the chest. You do not need to believe everything that follows. You only need to notice what is true in your body. If you said the phrase, pause to sense the micro-shift, a settling, a fine click in the field, a small alignment between your breath and a deeper current. That click is the beginning of permission, not permission from outside, but permission you grant yourself to be moved. You felt the shift, didn't you? That recognition is the first practical tool. From here, the mission begins to move things that previously felt immovable. Watch how mission energy alters the trajectory of daily life. This is how it tends to unfold. When purpose begins its work, your outer life rearranges itself to carry the inner call. Jobs that once fit may suddenly feel like heavy costumes. You may find your attention slipping away from tasks that once consumed you. This does not necessarily mean immediate unemployment or dramatic crisis. Often it shows up as a gentle but persistent misfit, an inner voice refusing to play along. You find yourself drawn toward new people, conversations, and places that vibrate with possibility. Synchronicities increase in frequency. They are not mere coincidences any longer. You begin to read them as instructions, small arrows pointing to a corridor you previously couldn't see. Expect a narrowing of tolerance. What used to be acceptable becomes unsustainable. This is not about moralism, it is about resonance. Your field begins to disfavor anything that dulls your tone. Lethargy, dishonesty, drama that extracts rather than contributes, these things fray the working canvas. As a result, relationships may shift. Some will deepen through shared alignment, others will fade, not because you chose to punish, but because the mission seeks clarity and doesn't tolerate dilution. Many people experience this as loss and as liberation at the same time. You may also notice your decisions shape reality more quickly. Small acts of alignment, a choice to speak, to move, to stop, will produce outsized results. This is because the carrier, the one walking the mission, becomes a more efficient transducer. Your actions resonate through fields you once respected from a distance. A single, clear intention, followed by consistent motion, will often bind timelines and open thresholds. Be mindful, speed does not remove discernment. The mission favors presence over frantic activity. Act when the feeling of alignment is steady, otherwise the field learns to ignore noise. Synchronicities transition into instructions. A song lyric, a book, a conversation at a coffee shop. These are not random ornaments. They contain cues. The mission will test your ability to follow the thread.
When you notice these cues, resist the urge to over-intellectualize. Practice simple compliance. Do the thing that causes your chest to expand rather than contract. Over time, your inner authority will differentiate between compelling alignment and reactive longing. This work is not sudden favoritism. There is a reason timing matters. The Arcturians do not activate early. They do not hand out ignition keys to fields that cannot carry the current. There is a patient intelligence at play that waits for a carrier to be capable enough, emotionally, energetically, and spiritually, to hold the assignment without fracturing. Why now? Because you reached a threshold. The field that holds you has matured. Your past errors, your recoveries, the nights you thought you could not continue, they have altered your resonance. Much of this maturing is invisible, but it is measurable in presence. There is a certain steadiness under stress that the mission needs. It is not perfect calm, but the ability to remain centered as reality rearranges. You have been practicing in the dark. The Arcturians scan for this capacity, and when they detect it, the contact begins. Timing is also about alignment with larger currents. Mission activation tends to cluster. Fields of intent across the planet, subtle hemispheres of intention, and collective readiness combine to create windows where action is viable and catalytic. Your activation is synchronistic with these windows. For some, the window arrives as an internal readiness. For others, as external pressure. Both are valid. Both are essentially a match being struck between inner frequency and outer opportunity. Another reason is identity calibration. The mission requires a version of you that can evolve without becoming unmoored. This version is more interested in precision than proof. It distinguishes between desire and destiny. Desires are personal. Missions are transmissive. Having lived through enough personal desire to see its limits, you are now ready for a different economy, one in which your energy serves a pattern larger than preference. The Arcturians begin to interface only after the carrier shows a track record of integrating loss, learning from rupture, and choosing presence over avoidance. There is also lineage in memory. Some of your readiness is not only the product of this life, but of configurations that predate it. Many carriers sense this as recognition rather than discovery. It is an echo that answers when the Arcturian touch arrives. That echo is part of why you may describe the felt presence as familiar. It is because you have practiced carrying light across time and other modalities, and now the field calls you into a more complex instrument. The Arcturians' method is surgical and incremental. They do not overwhelm, they rewire. Their work moves through specific domains: the nervous system, the emotional registry, the felt sense authority, the architecture of perception. You will experience this as both subtle recalibrations and decisive shifts. The most effective way to describe these shifts is to break them into operative layers, the practical articulations of what the 7-star souls motif means for you now. These are not mythic new names, they are functional aspects, 7 qualities that will surface as the activation progresses, each a layer the Arcturians tune within your field. Layer 1. Resonant field. This is the widening of your electromagnetic sensibility. You begin to perceive nuance in people and places you once evaluated coarsely. The resonant field amplifies what matches your core frequency and dampens what does not. Layer 2. Inner authority. This is the softening of outer permission and the hardening of inner alignment. Decisions gain weight because they come from a tuned center rather than from reaction. Layer 3. Timeline mobility. Your capacity to shift through probable outcomes increases. You will often find possibilities collapsing into one clear route when you align with intention and feeling. Layer 4. Emotional clarity. Old residues are labeled and processed faster. The field creates opportunities for purging that are proportionate and instructive rather than punitive. Layer 5. Intuitive precision. Not vague hunches, but finely resolved impressions. A name, a sequence of steps, a timing that feels physically real in the body. Layer 6. Embodiment protocol. This is the gearing of posture, breath, and presence so that carrying the mission does not exhaust but conserves energy. Embodiment protocol teaches how to remain efficient under pressure. Layer 7. Influence field. Quiet and uncoercive, this layer allows you to carry effect without drama. Presence changes outcomes by quietly rearranging probabilities. Each layer will open at its own tempo. You might feel the resonant field widen first, then the inner authority, then the timeline mobility, or the sequence might be different. The Arcturians tune like technicians, adjusting the resonance curves until the instrument, you, plays cleanly. Often people report a sense of being both older and younger simultaneously. Older because deep currents recognize old practice, younger because the nervous system learns new rhythms and possibilities. This paradox is the hallmark of real transmission. Notice the bodily markers for each layer. For resonant field, expect expansion through the thoracic cavity, sometimes a buzzing behind the collarbone. For inner authority, a quieting below the navel, as if a valve has found its seal. For timeline mobility, a peculiar lightness in the joints, a sensation that time is folding toward the heart. Emotional clarity shows as heat moving through the belly and throat, feelings articulating into words, then dissolving. Intuitive precision often appears as a focused pressure between the eyebrows, or a tiny electric sensation at the base of the skull.
Embodiment protocol arrives as increased stamina, an ease in breath that refuses panic. Influence field is not loud energy, it is a subtle warming in the hands and the field around your head. You may be tempted to test the edges of these layers. That is natural. Testing is itself a part of calibration. The field will respond. When you push from a clean place, the field aligns. When you push from fear, the field gives feedback in the form of friction, delays, dissonant interactions, small misfires. Learn to turn toward curiosity rather than judgment when friction appears. The Arcturians are correcting the instrument, not punishing the musician. One crucial piece to understand: the Arcturian approach includes an irreversibility threshold. This threshold is not abrupt drama. It is a quiet folding that, once crossed, makes the previous configuration untenable. Many carriers describe the moment as a soft erasure of old contingency, a sense that certain choices are now impossible because they no longer fit the frequency. This is not a loss of freedom, it is the consolidation of trajectory. Once you cross that line, the mission no longer remains an idea, it is the primary organizing center of experience. You will know the threshold is nearing when regret about small comforts begins to fade, and your nervous system prefers the discomfort of change to the stasis of compromise. The threshold often arrives as a time of compression. Decisions accelerate, ties loosen, the outer life simplifies. This is not the climax of the work, it is the stabilization that allows embodiment to begin in earnest. At this early stage of transmission, one pivotal quality emerges: permission. You may have been waiting for permission your entire life, from teachers, lovers, institutions, or even your own younger self. Now, permission must be reclaimed. Say inwardly, without pressure, "I accept the moment my mission awakened within me." Let the feeling of acceptance be literal, an opening in the chest that invites wiring rather than seeking validation. Whether you whispered the phrase earlier or simply held it in thought, the act of internal acceptance aligns neural and energetic patterns. It signals readiness to the system. Do not misunderstand. Acceptance is not renunciation. It is a consent to proceed. It does not guarantee ease. It guarantees that the field will begin to work through you with greater fidelity. You may find that secondary systems, family expectations,
Habitual routines, models of safety, begin to question your choices. This is expected. They are not enemies. They are parts of the system seeking coherence. Meet them with the same authority you cultivate for the mission. Speak the truth gently and firmly, prioritizing alignment over appeasement. Mini-hook. This is initiation, not inspiration. Remember this line as you move. It will help you distinguish between arbitrary enthusiasm and the quiet pull of assignment.
As the Arcturians tune your architecture, they also adjust the nervous system's operating parameters. Expect nights where your sleep cycles compress or fragment as the field samples different bandwidths. Expect days of bright focus where you accomplish what previously took 2 weeks. This is adaptive. Your physiology is learning to hold higher frequency without burning through reserves. Be practical in support. Hydrate, rest when possible, and consult your healthcare providers when symptoms feel destabilizing. The activation is energetic. Integration is physiological and practical. A common misconception is that activation will make the practicalities of life irrelevant. It will not. The mundane remains the medium. You will pay bills, wash dishes, speak with coworkers. The mission simply changes the way these activities resonate. Ironically, mundane tasks become instruments. Every conversation is a chance to practice presence. Every commute an arena for sheltering the field. Small acts, repeated, build the architecture that the Arcturians work through. You may also begin to notice credibility shifting, not in the sense of accolades, but in the opinions of those around you. As your field tightens, some people may grow suspicious, some curious, and some inspired. This reordering is natural. Do not take it personally. The mission does not require unanimous approval. It requires fidelity. At the edge of these shifts, another presence arrives, the future self. This is not a fiction. It is a felt alignment with the version of you that has already integrated certain outcomes. The future self appears as a tone more than a message, a posture you slowly inhabit. It offers practical nudges rather than proclamations. Notice how a thought surfaces with the clarity of weather. Do this at 3? Call her now. Say less, listen more. These nudges are rarely loud. They are precise. Imagine now a simple exercise. Picture a version of yourself 1 year hence who has embodied one thread of the mission. See them in detail. How they stand, how they move, the cadence of their speech. Notice the small difference in breath. Steadier, lower, quieter. Allow the sensation of inhabiting that frame for 30 seconds. This is not fantasizing. It is rehearsal for neural adjustment. The future self is not a foreign entity. It is an emergent calibration that will guide present choices. Mini-hook. The future self is not a reward waiting at the end of struggle. It is a guide walking beside you, accessible when you quiet argument and listen. As these processes unfold, there will be invitations to practical alignment, small routines that consolidate the field. These are not rituals for show. They are micro-habits that agitate the nervous system. Keep your morning breath steady. Ground with 3 full exhalations before deciding. When an instruction arrives, mark it with a small action within the hour. Simple protocols create fidelity.
You might be asking, how will I know the Arcturians are the intelligence here and not wishful thinking? The answer is not proof, it is calibration. Intelligence that increases your functional clarity and produces consistent, verifiable shifts in perception without coercion is the hallmark of effective transmission. The test is pragmatic. Do you wake more centered? Do small actions reliably produce outcomes that align with intention? Does your inner authority strengthen? If yes, continue. There will be times when doubt surfaces. The pattern of activation never eradicates human doubt. It reframes it. Doubt becomes a diagnostic tool, a pointer to where integration is incomplete or where fear is masquerading as wisdom. Learn to notice doubt as data, not as sentence. Use it to refine, not to retreat. Now, feel the field in your chest again. Notice any tightening, warming, or subtle electrical hum. The next stage is structural, a reconfiguration that moves beyond sensation into new operating parameters. This is where the Arcturians begin the realignment of pathways so that you can carry mission without depletion. They work quietly, like clockmakers adjusting gears.
You will feel knots loosening in ways that translate into easier choices, clearer perception, and swifter action. It is tempting to want to accelerate this work, to beg for quicker change. Resist the urge to force pace. Integration has a tempo. Respect it. There is a threshold coming that you may recognize as both ominous and exhilarating. It is a place where you choose your life by accord with frequency rather than by default. Crossing that seam means certain comforts will break, but you will gain a durability that allows you to steward influence without losing yourself. The mission becomes less about reaching the end and more about becoming the instrument through which the end manifests. At this juncture, you must decide how willing you are to steward the field. Will you hold the discipline to honor small alignments? Will you protect your nervous system while stepping forward? Will you permit the mission to reorganize your world? These questions are not tests from without. They are offerings from within. Saying yes is simple. Living yes is the work. And so the first phase of activation completes its arc. You have felt the chest, the clarity, the compression of time. You have allowed a phrase of acceptance to land. The Arcturians have begun tuning, and the 7 functional layers have been introduced into your awareness so they can begin to open. What follows next is an intensification, practical reshaping of identity, and the appearance of new immediate choices that will reveal the irreversibility threshold in real time. You are at a hinge, the field tightens, and something asks you to step with a new rhythm. Soon you will feel the first structural adjustments, not dramatic spectacle, but a graduated changing of how your decisions ripple.
At that moment, the work shifts from diagnosis to embodiment. The next transmissions will guide how to hold the field when others cannot. They will teach you to influence without forcing, to move in a manner that preserves energy and increases reach. For now, stay curious, stay embodied, and watch how the world begins to respond to the clarified frequency that you have permitted to ignite. Now the field asks for more than noticing. It asks for practice. The next stage is not a spectacle. It is a curriculum of small, repeated choices that train the instrument to hold greater current without burning. You will be asked to move with intention, not to perform. This is subtle work. It looks like life, but the quality of attention is different. Begin with the basics of consolidation. Keep to simple, repeatable protocols that shape the nervous system over weeks and months. They do not require elaborate ritual, only fidelity. 1. Morning alignment. Before you reach for the day's distractions, tune for 3 slow, full breaths and feel the micro shift in the chest. Let the breath be the bridge between sleep and alertness. This is not a superstition. It is a nervous system shortcut. A steady inhale that expands the ribs and a long, even exhale that softens the belly teaches the body how to carry clarity. 2. Hourly micro returns. Every hour, return for 10 seconds. Check the sternum, the jaw, the eyes. Tightness is data. When you notice contraction, privilege presence over performance. Soften the jaw, lengthen the exhale, and listen for the small instruction that wants to move you. These tiny returns compound. They are the sinew that keeps you from fraying. 3. Clear initiation of action. When an instruction lands, a direction that produces the chest's subtle openness, mark it with a small follow-through within the hour. A message sent, a short call, a step toward a place. These are confirmations to the field. The Arcturians tune responsiveness as much as receptivity. Doing the thing trains the system to trust itself. 4. Environmental triage. Begin to notice the resonance of your spaces. Some rooms and relationships will light the chest, others will flatten it. You do not need to excise everyone or abandon every place that hurts. Start with micro-boundaries. Shorten the time you spend in draining environments. Create pockets where the field can recharge. In time, alignment will reshape the geography of how you live. 5. Consistent language. Use precise verbs for inner states. I feel alignment. I notice decay. I choose emptying. Language is scaffolding for experience. When you name the subtle differences, the way a decision tightens or opens the chest, you make them more available to the nervous system. These patterns are practical. They are not glamorous, but they turn on circuits inside you that the Arcturians tune. Over time,
Your days will carry a different grain, less scattered reaction, more intentional modulation.
Small acts, repeated, reshape destiny as surely as a chisel shapes stone. Now we move into the guided rehearsal of the future self, deeper and more embodied. Rehearsal here is not fantasy, it is a neuroenergetic calibration. Close your eyes if you can. Bring up the image of you 1 year from now, having embodied a single clear thread of the mission. See them standing in sunlight, shoulders relaxed, breath low. Notice the cadence of speech, slower, decisive. Observe their hands, calm, precise. They move only when necessary. Hear the timbre of their voice, warmer, leveled by experience. Sense the subtle difference in the skin of the face, less drawn, more settled. Now imagine a small exchange. Someone asks this future self a simple, practical question. Watch how they respond. There is no vanity in the answer. There is clarity and a refusal to over-explain. The response is brief and carries consequence. Feel the way your chest aligns with that posture. Finally, feel the future self's steady, low pulse at the sternum. Allow a thin thread of that pulse to braid into your present heartbeat for 30 seconds. Notice how decision-making shifts. This is rehearsal for the nervous system, acting as if the instrument already carries, that tweaks the internal feedback loops. When you open your eyes, keep a small token of that posture with you. A ring of breath, a note on the desk, a repeated phrase. Let these trivial anchors call you back to the future self when the day wants to scatter you. Mini hook. The future self is a coach, not a prize. As the architecture of your field strengthens, your relationships will be both crucible and crucible's reward. Expect reordering and learn to meet it without judgment. Some relationships will deepen. People who have resonance will find new depths of trust and clarity with you. Conversations will become fewer but more consequential. You will discover a new criterion for closeness, capacity to hold activation. Others will depart. The departures are not always dramatic. Sometimes they are a gentle drifting apart. Sometimes they are abrupt dissolutions. Both are part of clearing space for fidelity. When someone leaves, treat the event as data rather than as a moral failing. Ask, does this change preserve my field? Does it create room for the next necessary resonance? Grief may arise. Let it be honored. Loss and liberation are twins here, different faces of the same clearing. On the outer axis, your work will begin to appear as an increase in influence that is quiet and disproportionate. You will find that certain small statements move outcomes. This is not charisma in the theatrical sense. It is a field effect. The influence will often manifest as efficient redirection, a brief phrase that reframes conversation, a presence that calms escalation, a timing that opens an unseen door. With influence comes responsibility. Use it with restraint.
Influence must not be used to dominate or manipulate. It is a tool for opening possibility. Be aware of the friction points. Your increased field will sometimes trigger others' defensive reflexes. The response can be suspicion, jealousy, or attempts to control. These reactions are not a sign that you must dim. They are signposts that the system around you must recalibrate. Attend to these moments with compassion and boundary. You can be soft and firm at once. Now listen for the markers the Arcturians make visible as the activation deepens, sensory cues that indicate a structural upgrade. The chest warmth steadies into a lower, consistent hum that you can carry through social activity without collapse. It is less flicker, more drone, a reliable base frequency. The forehead pressure that once came as a flash may now arrive as an instructive pinprick, precise and brief, that tells you exactly which step to take next. Timeline compression moves from occasional surprises to patterned acceleration. Projects that previously required long negotiations begin to resolve through fewer decisive interventions. Emotional waves roll and resolve faster. Where once grief or anger lingered as a background weather, now they arrive as weather systems that precipitate and clear,
quick storms followed by renewed clarity. The hands, especially around the base of the palms, carry a subtle warmth when you are aligned, a sign of the influence field. When you touch a surface or another person, notice whether that warmth persists. It is a sign of transmission holding through contact. These markers are practical checkpoints. Use them to verify integrity rather than to prove identity. Activation is not a badge, it is a function. Anchor now to permission for deeper restructuring. You have already accepted the arrival. Now grant yourself permission to be reshaped. This is not an erasure of autonomy. It is the consent to evolve through experience. Type, say, feel. I allow the transformation required for my mission. Notice where the phrase lands anatomically, perhaps as a loosening below the ribs, perhaps as a softening in the jaw. Allow a breath to follow the phrase and observe any micro changes. The permission act is a signal to your neuroenergetic system. It is a hinge for the next set of adjustments. Do not expect fireworks. Expect an incremental smoothing of internal friction as pathways reorganize. Mini-hook. Permission is not complacency, it is alignment practice. At this point, many carriers find themselves at the intersection of tangible logistics and subtle recalibration. It becomes essential to attend to practical supports that preserve capacity. Sleep hygiene is crucial. Even if sleep architecture shifts, prioritize restorative windows. Short naps can be profoundly rebalancing during periods of intense compression. Nutritional steadiness matters. Avoid extremes. Simple meals that support steady energy stabilize the field.
Movement that hums the system, walking, slow strength work, breath-based practices, teaches the body how to carry new frequencies. Professional support is not a sign of failing, it is an ally. If your nervous system feels overwhelmed, consult medical professionals, therapists, or somatic practitioners. Integration benefits from appropriate care. Community matters. Find 2 or 3 people who can be steady mirrors, ones who listen without making everything about them, who hold confidentiality, who can hold your field when you cannot. Hold these supports as you would a scaffold. They are not the mission, but they make mission-bearing sustainable. Mini-hook. Ask for help before the spool unravels. You may be curious about the origin of selection. Why you? The answer is a weave of capacity and resonance. Capacity. You have demonstrated a certain tolerance for loss and a pattern of recovery that signals durability. Mission requires not invulnerability, but recoverability, the ability to return to center after destabilizing events. Resonance. Your field oscillates at a frequency that can anchor a specific pattern of influence. This is not an ethical judgment, it is energetic consonance. Memory. There is an archival echo in your system that responds to the Arcturian touch. Sometimes it arrives as a recognition of craft, of pattern, of something you once knew how to do across different lives or modalities. Choice. A lineage of choices has carved neural pathways that favor service to pattern over short-term traction. You may not have always intended this path, but pattern remembers. The selection is not a gift that exempts you from challenge. It is an invitation into a role that reshapes how you exchange energy with the world. Those who carry mission often inherit complexity. Be ready for contradictions, power and vulnerability, loneliness and deep intimacy, acceleration and the necessity of rest. Mini-hook. You were selected because you could carry the weight and return to light. As you near the irreversibility threshold, pay heed to the subtle signs. They are quieter than drama and more dependable. Diminished nostalgia for previous comforts. You will notice a fading appetite for certain comforts that once mattered, not because they were bad, but because their energetic cost now outweighs their value. Compressed decision windows. The margin for indecision tightens. Choices must be made with less deliberation. This is the field pressing for clarity. Less interest in seeking permission. External validation begins to matter less. The internal metric grows louder. The threshold itself often arrives without fanfare. One morning, a habitual choice will feel incongruent in a way that surprises you. The old path will be possible, but only as a distortion. That sense, the knowledge that some previous options would now be dissonant, signals the fold. Crossing it consolidates trajectory.
Afterward, efforts to return are possible but costly. You will not be erased for experimenting. The energetic landscape simply responds differently. When you sense the threshold approaching, take inventory. Ask, which relationships, practices, and container elements support the field? Which ones dilute? Make choices that reduce friction. Remember that crossing is not a punishment, it is an invitation into primary service. It is time now to embody. Embodiment is the craft of translating inner authority into steady action. It is what makes the mission functional in the world. To aid embodiment, practice the 3 gateways of action: ground, voice, and follow-through. Ground. Anchor the field in the body before every significant step. A single long exhale can shift intention into posture. Habitually ground before speaking, deciding, or acting. Voice. Use concise language. A mission carrier does not need to explain at length. Their voice is calibrated. Speak with brevity and let silence carry the rest. Follow-through. Small, immediate actions confirm the soundness of impulses. The pattern of quick, aligned steps trains both you and the field to trust each other. Type/say/feel. I embody the mission moving through me. Feel the phrase in the pelvic center and the sternum. Let the breath that follows be steady. Notice if the shoulders reset, if the tongue softens. Embodiment is less performance and more alignment. Posture, microhabits, and consistent speech form the scaffolding. Mini-hook. Embodiment is practiced in the small openings of the day. With embodiment comes a quiet potency that redistributes energy. You will notice that being present no longer requires the same volume of effort. Influence becomes more efficient. Your reach increases without expanding your activity. This is a sign of deep tuning. Now consider the social consequences. Some will misunderstand. Others will idealize. Both views are partial. Maintain boundaries. Teach people what you can hold and what you cannot. When asked to explain, offer a clear phrase. I'm moving with a new alignment. I'll share when it's relevant. This protects your field without alienating others. Protective practices are not avoidance. They are stewardship. Use selective disclosure. Share the minimum necessary to maintain practical relationships. Reserve depth for contacts that can carry it. Mini-hook. Protection is stewardship, not secrecy. We come now to the intimate question of lineage, obligation, and duty. Mission carriers sometimes struggle with the sense that they owe something to ancestors, communities, or previous iterations of self. This obligation can be a heavy lever or a guidepost. Use lineage as information, not as debt. If ancestral narratives urge particular outcomes that feel misaligned, honor the story but refuse to be coerced by its demands. You may reframe legacy into service. What of your lineage's strength can you use to hold this role now?
What patterns must be released so your work does not perpetuate harm? The Arcturians tune to clarity, not to repetition. Remember also that mission does not require martyrdom. Contribution can be sustainable. Longevity in service is more effective than brief, dramatic sacrifice. Steward the vessel. Allow rest, honor boundaries, and choose projects that match capacity. Mini-hook. Longevity beats drama. Now the work arrives at a practical test. Influence without burnout. Many carriers fail at scale because they misunderstand the balance between capacity and reach. Expansion without support ends in collapse. Build infrastructure. Delegation. Even in early stages, find competent allies for routine tasks. This frees your bandwidth for catalytic decisions. Clear roles. Define what you are asking people to hold. Role clarity reduces interpersonal friction and conserves field energy. Iterative scaling. Grow in predictable steps. Test new capacities with short pilot efforts before committing to wide expansion. Regular recalibration. Schedule check-ins with your body and trusted mirrors. Reassess alignment quarterly and adjust. These management habits are as spiritual as they are practical. The Arcturians value efficiency. When you act like a technician of influence, you conserve power and multiply effect. Before the next anchor, note a caution. Some carriers experience intrusive doubt that masquerades as humility. Distinguish between healthy hesitancy and chronic self-erasure. If the voice of doubt consistently undermines action, treat it as a separate system to be investigated with curiosity and support. The moment for the next deeper commitment approaches. You have accepted. You have allowed transformation. You have practiced embodiment.
The threshold for irreversible embodiment is near, and the Arcturians make visible a final invitation to step fully into the identity that organizes your life. Type, say, feel. I step fully into the irreversible embodiment of my mission. Let the phrase land slowly. Notice how it changes your breath, the alignment of your shoulders, the cadence of your thoughts. This is not a fatalistic rendering. It is a vow to prioritize frequency over comfort when the two diverge. Saying this does not remove your agency. It marks a commitment to let the mission act as primary vector for choices. After this affirmation, some practical shifts may appear quickly. A relationship you had been ambivalent about will simplify. A professional window will open that asks for decisive engagement. A creative line will demand completion. Do not panic. These are openings for embodiment. Many-hook. Saying yes rearranges reality. Living yes arranges destiny. If you find resistance, remember that integration occurs in layers. Old patterns will test the new alignment. When you meet friction, respond with practical rituals. Breath, micro-action, recalibration.
If the resistance is persistent or destabilizing, honor care by seeking professional or community support. The Arcturians also advise a measured approach to public disclosure. Some carriers move quickly into highly visible roles. Others prepare in private for longer spans. Choose your pace according to the field's steadiness. Visibility multiplies both support and pressure. Prepare infrastructure before large public steps. Now, a short map of common experiences once the mission anchors in place, so you can anticipate and steward them. The acceleration of decision. You will find shorter windows where choice matters. Practice confidence with brevity. Increased interpersonal testing. People will project needs onto you. Your role is to discern between service and enabling. Cycles of isolation and deep connection. Both are necessary. Rest in solitude when recalibrating. Seek aligned mirrors when expanding. Reconfiguration of income streams and resources. Some financial shifts will occur as your work becomes more tuned. These shifts are rarely linear. Plan practically and avoid risky pivots without scaffolding. Periods of creative flush followed by maintenance phases. Honor both. The mission moves in pulses, not in constant crescendo. A new relationship with time. Deadlines become harmonics rather than walls. You will sense a felt integrity to moments that previously felt arbitrary. These experiences are neither universal nor prescriptive. You may encounter some, many, or variants unique to your constellation. Treat them as maps, not maps that demand slavish following. Mini-hook. Anticipation reduces surprise. Preparedness increases agency. Now, consider the role of community. The Arcturians emphasize the need for shielded integration spaces, containers where the field may be practiced without external noise. For many carriers, a protected circle accelerates stabilization. If you are considering deeper support, here is what a well-built member circle can provide. Private transmissions, periodic sessions that deepen calibration beyond public broadcasts. Integration workshops, focused practices for embodiment, nervous system care, and relational alignment. Small group mentorship, confidential spaces for tactical problem solving and field checking. Technical supports, resources on scaling, communication, and self-care ecosystems. Boundary architecture, guidance for disclosure, public presence, and maintaining integrity under visibility. A healthy circle is optional and practical. It is not a spiritual shortcut. It offers structure for integration, not guarantees. If you choose to enter a container, choose one that prioritizes confidentiality, clear expectations, and professional supports. A container that promises miraculous results or demands immediate surrender is not responsible. The Arcturians endorse measured, consent-based integration. Mini-hook. Community stabilizes frequency. Isolation risks distortion. As we close, 2 practical finalities. Keep your field tidy and be generous with curiosity. Tidy the field. Remove clutter, both physical and relational, that drains attention. Streamline your calendar, guard your mornings, and keep 2 trusted feedback sources who can speak truth. Be generous with curiosity. Treat strange experiences as data rather than destiny. When novel sensations arise, catalog them. Note the time, the environment, the intensity. Over weeks, patterns emerge that help you differentiate between field tuning and ordinary fluctuation. A final, calm reminder about care. Activation is energetic and profound, but it is not a replacement for conventional supports. If you experience persistent anxiety, depression, or physical symptoms that concern you, seek medical or therapeutic assistance. The Arcturian transmission complements care. It does not replace it. You are not alone in this. The felt company you sensed earlier deepens as you practice the work. Presence, both your own and those that assist you, is the primary stabilizer. Hold the chest warmth as a friend, the forehead clarity as a compass, and the slow breath as the anchor that returns you to center. If this transmission has aligned with you and you wish to continue in a protected container, consider joining a focused integration circle designed for carriers and activation. The circle offers monthly advanced transmissions, small group integration sessions, practical workshops for nervous system resilience, and confidential mentoring to help you translate resonance into sustainable service. Membership is optional, supportive, and structured around consent and confidentiality. It is a space to practice embodiment without spectacle and to receive technical feedback as you calibrate. If you are interested in learning more, follow the link associated with this message to read the full guidelines and see the next available cohort. Joining will not change your activation. It will provide structured support for integration, accountability, and deeper transmissions. Choose only if the offer aligns with your capacity and your ethics. There is no pressure here, only an invitation. Before we conclude, take a moment to feel the field in your chest and the subtle tone behind the eyes. Let your breath steady. Remember the lines that matter. You accepted the arrival. You allowed transformation. You began to embody the mission. These are acts of agency. They rewire the system, not through force, but through consistent fidelity. One last affirmation to carry into the day. You are a carrier. Your activation has begun, and the work of living into that role is gradual, practical, and consecrated by choices made again and again. The Arcturians assist by tuning, not by overriding, and your sovereignty remains central to every calibration. If this finds you, your activation begins. Walk forward with disciplined curiosity, tender care, and steady attention.
The mission is asking for your presence more than your drama. Let presence be your practice. If you want the support of a shielded integration circle, visit the link to learn more and decide if now is the right timing for you. Whatever you choose, remain kind to yourself. You are learning a new grammar of living. It takes time, practice, and gentle correction. Go with clarity, carrier. The field is awake. The work has started.